Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones, and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, and time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek, time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to throw away, a time to tear, and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace.
Thank you, Tia. Isn't that interesting? We read that every year, and we talk about a time for all these things as if God had given it time, and then you come to find out time is a construct of human beings anyway. But I guess we followed the patterns of nature in establishing time so we can offer that to God. It's a good reading, and it is time. It's a new year. I hope you started the new year 5 weeks ago at Advent, because in the liturgical calendar we began at Advent, okay? And I point out to you that today is the last Sunday in the season of Christmas. Now, I hope this registered with you. If not, we're going to try it again next year, so stick around for a year. For 4 weeks, if we participated in commercial Christmas, that's fine, but it wasn't Christmas here yet. It was Advent. We were talking about waiting. But you see today that there are elements of Christmas still here. The wreath, the tree. The table has now gone white on Christmas Eve, and it will remain white for the first Sunday of Epiphany, which is next week. Christmas is a short season this year. And then the second week of Epiphany, this table will be green until the Lenten season arrives. So, watch the color to change. Let that help you as you mark time. At our house, we really spent 4 weeks this year getting ready for Christmas. Even if we went shopping, it was all about getting ready. And so today the message is, and so what about Christmas? It's here. It wasn't one day a week ago. For this year, it's a week and a half long. It ends on Wednesday with the Epiphany of the Lord. Okay? What about the Christmas season? I want to read this to you. I saved this reading for myself. This is my text for today. From the 2nd chapter of Matthew. It requires just a little bit of explanation. It begins at the 13th verse, and it speaks about when the Magi had come to visit Jesus. Remember that? The 3 kings or the 3 wise men or whoever they were and however many number they were, they arrived to visit Jesus. And so we begin with the 13th verse, and this is after they have left. Now after they, this is the Magi, had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph, how? In a dream. And he said to Joseph, I'm assuming the angel is a he, like most good biblical scholars, right? The angel, however angels are, said to Joseph, get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him. And then Joseph got up and took the child and his mother by night and went to Egypt. And he remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. Out of Egypt I have called my son. When Herod saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, he was infuriated, and he sent and killed all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old or under. I really wanted somebody's mama to read that. So I don't want you to miss that. And it's not the topic of the sermon today, but it's a pretty doggone important piece of the reading. Herod sought out the baby Jesus, and that he had put to death every child under the age of 2, for that was the age that he had been given by the Magi. And then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more. Now we move on. When Herod, this evil ruler, had died, an angel of the Lord suddenly appeared to Joseph. How? In a dream. Boy, this guy has a lot of dreams, doesn't he? Sleeps a lot, yeah. He appeared to Joseph again in a dream and said, in Egypt, and said to Joseph, get up and take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who were seeking the child's life are dead. And then Joseph got up and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And after being warned in a dream, he went away to the district of Galilee, and there he made his home in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled, that he will be called a Nazarene. May God bless the reading of the Word this day. Alfred North Whitehead is a famous philosopher, and he writes about potential. He uses the Greek term teleos. Teleos is potential, but maybe a little different than you and I think about it. If I held up to you an acorn, and I should have gone out in the woods and got one. I didn't spend enough time outside this week. But if I held up an acorn and said, what is the potential of this acorn? The first thing you might say is what? It's going to be a tree. It'll grow into not just a tree, but one of the tallest and stoutest and mightiest trees in all the forest. From one acorn can grow a giant, mighty oak tree. Yeah. And that's potential. But that's not teleos. Teleos is a little bit deeper than that. It follows the trail a little farther. You see, from giant oak trees, we can make lumber. And with lumber, we can build things. We can build homes, but we can also build boats and ships, which can be sent into battle to defend the shores and protect and ensure the freedom of the people. So what is the teleos of an acorn? But it is the freedom of the people. You see how different it is to think as far ahead in teleos than just immediate potential. And so with that thought in mind, I'm going to ask you today to think about this as we begin a new calendar year along with other people in our society. What is your potential? Now, this is an old question. It's not one that you haven't been asked before, and your mind may go to a lot of different places, you know. There are people who have great potential athletically, and they develop that, and they have careers in athletics, or they enhance their education experience through participation in team sports. There are people who have a great potential in their minds for study and for teaching and for leading people in the things they study and learn. There's a great potential in a lot of things. When I was dating Shannon, and she dragged out that little box of rags and junk that I saw, and she put together a Halloween costume for my little daughter Heather in 5 minutes with no stitching or anything, and I saw teleos. I saw potential. I said right then, I'm going to marry this girl. She can sew. And that was something that, it was sort of a joke, but not really. I mean, because you didn't find that a lot. What is your real potential? I want to ask you right now, what is the potential of the Christmas story? I mean, for most of our friends, Christmas is over. For little Cheyenne, it's done, because she ran around all day saying, presents, I want presents, I want presents. And after she had opened all of hers and everybody else's who showed up late, and we had to rewrap them again, and after she cried for an hour because she realized there are no more presents. I don't know if she knows what a year is like, but she understands now that you got to wait a while for Santa to come back. It's not going to happen every day. For a lot of people, the Christmas story is over now. It's all about shopping, and it's all about spending money, and it's all about complaining about shopping and spending money. And it's all about happy holidays or Merry Christmas or which God do you worship or serve, and complaining about that. And all of that is finally over on Christmas Day. But yet the liturgical calendar drags this thing out for 1 or 2 more Sundays, and here we are. It's still Christmas, and if it all ended when the last gift was open, I ask you one more time, what is the potential of this Christmas story? So what? Away in a manger. We sing it, and it's over now. God is a baby in a manger with no room in the inn, and what do we do with this story? Well, the Gospel of Luke, right away in its earliest chapters, says here is the potential of the Christmas story. Good news. Good news to the poor, to the sick, to the oppressed, to the imprisoned. Luke, in those early chapters, we studied it last year, is hollering, good news, it's the year of God's favor. One of y'all might grow up to be a preacher one day. That's potential. That's teleos. And you might need something I'm going to say, because you might be able to say it or someone can make sense out of it. So listen to me. Listen to me. Potential, teleos, that means that you're not in grammar school no more. You're in middle school and high school, and you're asked to stay in here with us for a reason. And that reason is not about you. Hope you're listening, because it's going to be that kind of year around here. Luke announces the good news at the beginning, but Matthew does not. We're not studying Luke this year. We're studying Matthew. And Matthew doesn't start out saying, good news to the poor. Matthew starts out saying, warning, danger. Who sees the teleos? Who sees the potential in the baby in the manger? Have you seen this TV commercial? I like it. I just saw it during the holidays. There's this big, ugly, fuzzy thing walking around, and he's supposed to be new ideas. And he comes like this going, and up through the water trough. Nobody wants to talk to him, into the office place. And he looks like he's got the flu before long, just dragging himself through. And it says, what's ever so true, new ideas are enemies of the establishment. New ideas are a threat to your security and mine. New ideas are never met with hope and expectation. They're always met with doubt and with discernment and criticism. New ideas are scary. But yet without new ideas, we're stuck. So it takes a little time for new ideas to sort of be around long enough for us to sort of start to think, well, that was my idea all along, you know. I think this is okay. But at first they're a threat. And Herod hears the threat, doesn't he? This Herod that kills babies, this is the father of Antipas Herod. And he's the one who acquired his kingdom through murder. And he put together one great big kingdom. And when he dies, in fact, that kingdom gets split up between Antipas, and then up north is Philip, his brother. And so, remember, and John the Baptist is hollering about, you're sleeping with your brother's wife, and there's a lot of this political structuring going on. But this Herod, this killer, he sees the potential in this baby, Jesus. And he does something about it. When you really embrace your full potential in God, you're going to have problems. When you embrace your full potential in anything, you're going to have problems. When you realize your great potential for education and you return to school to further yourself, you're going to encounter problems. Tests are a problem. Homework assignments are difficult. They are a problem. And the biggest problem among all of them, here's a P word. I'm doing P words this year. Procrastination. My daughter said, I can't study at home because this. And I said, you can't study at home because of the TV. Well, how am I going to fix that? Go to the library. Because then you are at a destination and you'll make yourself do what you came there to do. You can't do it in your bedroom. Some people can, but not everybody. When you embrace your potential for anything, you're going to encounter resistance because nothing is worth having if you don't have to endure a little bit to get it. The things that you acquire for nothing are over, like a free lunch. It ends in an hour. Actually, it's not over then, because the next time you go to lunch, it might be your turn to buy. So, anytime you reach for who it is that you can be, you will encounter resistance, and too many times we stop and say, I can't do it. It's too hard. I can't keep going. It's too hard. What is your potential in God? What is your real potential in God? I want to ask you today, because it comes up in the Scripture so many times. What do you dream about? I don't just mean when you lay down at night and you have these vivid images that roll through your head, and they may be about something that's going to happen or something that did happen. I don't know. There's books written about interpreting your dreams. Buy one. Have fun. It's good to read. I don't care what you're reading. But I'm asking you, what do you really dream about? When you don't have to be asleep to dream it. Right under the surface, what are your greatest hopes? And what do you wish more than anything else? And I'm going to ask you something else. Is it all about you? Are all your dreams about you? Is it all about your health or your prosperity or a change in your situation? Or when you dream, do you dare to dream about your family or your community or your church or the world? Or do you shirk back and say, I can't affect those things? I can't have world peace, therefore peace is not possible, and I'm not even going to try for it in my house, in my heart. Have you sold your potential for God because you can't believe in the things that are too big? Herod believed enough to kill a bunch of kids. And God has given you an inheritance that you can't imagine claiming, and you won't do it because you can't imagine. It just can't be true. But the good news is really that good. It's true. What is your potential in God? You see, when you develop your true potential, it's not about you. If you're praying because you're sick and you're not getting well, stop praying just to get well and start praying, God, what can you do with me in this broken state? I tried that once on an Emmaus walk. And I ended my walk by saying in prayer to God, nobody but me and God, Lord God, if I have to quit my job and cut my hair and sell flowers at the airport, I'm going to hell. This ain't going to work. I said that out loud to God, not to anybody. But then I said this, but Lord, if there really is anything you could use a long-haired rock and roll guitar player to do, you can call me. And my phone hadn't stopped ringing since I said that prayer. What is your potential in God? And is it all about you, or can you make it not about you for a while? And when will you take the next step? Some people have exchanged believing in God for living for God. And they have topped out in their potential. I believe with my head, well, congratulations, you got there. Now you've peaked. But there's more. Have you grown at all since the day you got saved? Do you remember the last time you were evangelized, and was it more than a year ago? What's going on in your spiritual life, and why have you sold away your potential? Your potential in God requires that you do something, that you put your feet to the path and make a move. And I want to ask you today, when will you start? Oh, we've started, preacher. Well, yeah, you're the faithful. You're here. I get about half of y'all every Sunday morning. But when will you start? Here's what they ask you on an Emmaus walk. When will you visit your spiritual director? And what are you waiting on? And see, I caught y'all, because you can't lie to me about that. I know you don't have another spiritual director out there. Maybe 2 or 3 of y'all. maybe 2 or 3 of y'all, because you're in another community of faith that knows that you better stay connected or you're sunk. But outside of those 2 or 3 of y'all, I'm your spiritual director. And I don't see y'all. When will you begin a life of contemplative prayer? When? Next year? That's a good choice, because today's the first day of a new year. You got 365 more days to slough off. You can start next year, or you start today. Matthew asks at the end of his gospel, how are you doing? How are you doing with the poor? How are you doing with the imprisoned? Did you see me when I was sick and offer me healing? Did you see me when I was poor and offer me help? Did you visit me when I was in prison? What Luke proclaims at the beginning of his gospel as the year of the God's favor, at the end of Matthew's gospel, he's asking those questions. How are we doing with that? And he doesn't just make it about you and me. He makes it about the whole community. It says the nations in Matthew 25 are judged by this. How you treat your poor. How you treat your imprisoned. I read an article, and imprisonment, I know. I'm just, because I got a kid there. You got loved ones there too. And I just read an article the other day about a lawyer who's brought a lawsuit against the Texas Department of Criminal Justice because most prisons don't have air conditioning. And in 2011, we had a record heat wave. And a large number of people, some of them were aged and elderly people who are addicted to alcohol and have been put in prison for a number of months because they can't stop drinking and driving, and it's a problem. But then that drunk driving sentence turns into a death sentence when that old person can't survive temperatures of 125 or 130 in the cell block. Well, there's a way to survive it. I give my son money, and he buys a fan. But it works like this. A fan costs $40. I put $60 on his books. 10% of it, $6, disappears immediately for fines that have been levied against him. So now he's got $54. Half of it gets taken away if he's been to the infirmary to see a doctor. So now he's got $22, $26, $27. Yeah. I can't buy the fan, Dad, until you give me some more money. 60 more? Going to take about 80 more by the time they get their cut. So the next time somebody says, well, I don't want my tax dollars making sure that lawbreakers have air conditioning, if it's not enough to remind him that lawbreakers are not only children of God, but Jesus sitting in jail sweating, then just remind him of this. Your tax dollars didn't do anything about the air conditioning. You're just paying the warden's bonus salary, and I'm sure that's important. Now I've had my political moment. But you know what? So's Matthew. Jesus comes along in Matthew's gospel in an election year when the bad king is killing everybody because he knows that he's losing power. And the new people come along, and Jesus comes home, and then Matthew asks these questions. But you know what? He says something else too. Here we are along with the crowd saying to Matthew, yeah, in a perfect world, world peace, all of this is... Selling that potential. What's it worth to you? $50, $100? What does it take to buy your spirituality out? Some of y'all say you pray. I'm not sure if you pray and then you don't believe in what you pray for. I don't know what you think of prayer. And if you're not participating after the prayer, I know what you think of prayer. You're waiting on God to do it. What do you prepare for? Do you believe that God can take the efforts of a few of us and change the world? If you don't, you've missed the teleos, the potential of the story of a baby in a manger. The teleos is world peace, good news to the poor. No kidding? This kid that no one cares about, that can't even get a room in the hotel, and the only people who care are a few shepherds. And out of this little town in Judea comes the possibility of reconciliation with God for the whole world. If God can do that with a baby in a manger 2,000 years ago, with no mass communication, as Rice and Weber said, what more could God do with us? This is a year of preparation here at Wylie Christian Church. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. We waste a lot of teleos here. We have a beautiful children's program and freedom for kids here, but what would it look like if we really structured that? What would it look like if kids wanted to go to their class instead of dancing up here in front of everybody for the whole hour? What if we took some of the freedoms that we offer away in exchange for structure? Because I'm going to tell you what your household and my household needs right now is structure. You hear me. You hear me. In this new year, I didn't do much right. I never made a lot of money, but my kids will tell you they lived in 2 places in their whole life. Heather grew up in one house, and when she left, we moved, and my other kids grew up in another one. Now, that don't sound like much, but let me tell you, you ask people who had to move every 60 days because mom and daddy couldn't pay the rent. Ask them what it was like. Find out how important that structure is. Some people call it a rut. I call it a groove, baby. It's a groove. You get in there and you do what you do, and you do it well. What would happen if we got everybody to praise band rehearsal? Wonder what would happen. I watched Charlie Daniels the other day, and he said, if you want to sleep in a motel, then don't join my band. He said, we sleep on the bus. He said, if you want to do this for glamour, get a weekend gig at the Holiday Inn and work a day job. Because, yeah, there's glamour, but the glamour comes after hours and hours of hard work. There is no glamour in showing up to rehearsal on time, and especially when you don't need it. When somebody in the group don't need it. Well, okay, you know all the songs. You're not going to get any better in the next half hour, but you're going to make the rest of us better. I'm preaching to y'all, and you're the ones who came here on Sunday morning. But what is your teleos? How could you grow seats here? And how many of us, let me tell you, I got to stop. I'm going to say something I shouldn't. For many years, this church has reached out to a number of people who have refused to be a part of our group. And we have continued to reach out to those individuals. Some of them have moved on. You know what? The most growth you experienced as a church was when you kept pouring yourself out on somebody who kept saying, I don't want what you have. But you kept doing it, and they kept taking it. You're the big winner. I feel sorriest for the people who stood in the back corners of the church and held us at arm's length while we blessed them and said, I don't trust you. This happened over and over. I'm not talking about one person. I'm talking about a group of people. And then some of those people will call me and say, why in the world is God letting things happen to me? Sometimes people are... What is the teleos of this group right here? How can those who already come on Sunday and hear this message be that message for the ones who really need it and aren't here today? Because I can't preach it again for 4 weeks while they all show up. What is the potential that you have in God? And what are you preparing for? Do you believe the good news? That is the message this year for me of the Christmas baby, and that's the challenge for you. Will you pray with me now?